If you want to achieve financial independence, then you're probably an optimizer like I am. You want to optimize everything so that you can get there as fast and as efficiently as possible. However, I'm going to try to convince you right now that sometimes, and maybe most of the time, the simple path is better than the optimal path. Hello everyone, my name is Zach, and welcome to On Cashflow, where I help you become a master of your own cash flow. Now let's get started. What am I talking about here when I'm referring to optimal versus simple? Well, optimal would be taking the best possible action, whereas simple is taking the best bang for your buck type of action. Simple is something that's easy to understand, easy to implement, and it's probably going to get you 80, 85, 90% of the way there that the optimal path would do, while taking probably a lot more time, a lot more research, a lot more different kinds of action. And there's probably no better way to illustrate the fact that simple is better than optimal than just by mentioning some, not all, just some of the mistakes that I have made where I have tried to optimize my way towards financial independence. One thing that I have always tried to optimize in the past was my federal income tax bill. I always wanted to optimize it down to $0 as much as I possibly could. And for the most part, most years, I did a pretty good job of that. However, I probably could have just taken a much more simpler approach, and today I would probably be pretty much at the same spot, not much different, in a good way. For example, when I was in the military and I was stationed overseas, a lot of my income was non-taxable income. There was a small portion of it that was taxable income, and therefore I was in a very low tax bracket. I was in the 10% federal income tax bracket. That was my marginal rate. The maximum amount of money that I was probably going to get taxed on was 10% of some of my dollars. And since I was stationed overseas, even though I entered into the military through California, which is known as a high income tax state, I was not subject to that state income tax since I was stationed elsewhere. And so I was in the 0% state income tax bracket. Yet I still chose to optimize my taxes and contribute to my traditional IRA sometimes. Sometimes I contribute to my traditional 401k in order to get my tax bill down to zero because I wanted to optimize that tax bill. However, it probably would have just been simpler. It would have took me a lot less time to just max out my Roth IRA, max out my Roth 401k, which I had access to. The effective tax rate of mine probably would have been less than 5%. It would have been a lot simpler to have all that money into Roth accounts while I was in a low tax bracket. And today, I wouldn't have to do so many Roth IRA conversions, even though that is part of my plan, because I already would have had so much more money in my Roth accounts. So that's one minor mistake where I chose to optimize rather than take a simpler path. Another one was when it comes to my spending, especially on my path to financial independence. I was obsessed with optimizing my spending. I took a look at every expense in detail and reduced it as much as I could, in a smart way. The reason why this is a mistake is because you can only optimize your spending so much until you get down to the minutia, which I got into the minutia. I was looking at how could I save $1 on this, or how can I save $5 on this? But in the grand scheme of things, that $1, that $5, come on, that's not really going to make that much of a difference. It's not going to move the needle much at all. There comes a point where you've gotten your expenses down to a certain point where it's much better, much simpler, much easier for you to just go and earn more income if you want to save more. If you want to invest more of your money, then go earn $100 rather than trying to cut all these different things in order to save $100. And there's a much simpler way to do it, to get to where you realistically need to be in order to achieve financial independence in a relatively short amount of time. And you know what? No matter where you are on your financial independence path, whether you're well on your way there or you're just getting started, I have a video that I think is going to help you out a lot. I'm going to save it for the end of this video, so please wait till the end of this video. I have a list of some of the best examples that I can share with you pretty quickly here of where simple is most likely better for you than optimal would be when you're trying to achieve financial independence. And that includes the investment choices that you make, the investment contributions that you make, your asset allocation, your spending, and how you reduce your income taxes. So for all of those, I have some examples on how the simple path is probably better for you than the optimal path. One thing you should always look to optimize is hitting the like button on this video. If you're enjoying this video, I would really appreciate it if you hit that like button. It really does help me out. But seriously, let's get on to our first example, and that is with your investment choices. Now, I don't know what the optimal investment choices are. There has been lots of research done that look back at historical data and see what was the optimal portfolio. However, there are lots of investment choices that might make up an optimal portfolio. The options are endless for what might be comprised of your portfolio. You've got, mutual funds, and you've got ETFs, you've got individual stocks, you've got bonds, you've got REITs, you've got tips, you've got all kinds of different stuff. However, what is something that is simple? What kind of investment choice is simple and it's going to deliver you 80, 85, 90% of the results of the optimal result? And most likely, I think for most of us, that's going to be a simple mutual fund index fund or the ETF equivalent. These are great and simple choices for most individual investors to have for their investments. Not only with your investment choices, but also with your investment contributions. Where are you going to be holding these simple investment choices? There might be an optimal way to do this. In fact, I've made a video about it, and there's probably lots of other videos out there as well. For example, it might be, hey, 1, start with your 401k match. 2, max out your Roth IRA. 3, max out your HSA if you have one. 4, go back to your 401k and max out your 401k. 5, contribute to your taxable investment account if you still have more money to invest. That might be technically optimal. However, it can get pretty complicated pretty quickly. And you know what might be simpler, and which might be better for you since it is simpler? If you have a great 401k at work that has index mutual funds with low fees and all that good stuff, then it might just be easier for you to max out your 401k, right? Sure, it's not optimal, but how simple is it to just have the money taken out of your paycheck and invested in the background through your 401k? And for the vast majority of us out there, it's going to get you 90% of the way there. With your asset allocation, sometimes simple can be better than optimal. What is an asset allocation that might be optimal? I don't really know, but there has been research done that said, hey, this is the efficient frontier. If you follow this, line and you're somewhere on this line, you have an optimal portfolio allocation of, hey, I accept this much risk for this much reward. And you could invest on the efficient frontier, whatever you need to invest with. But let's say, just for hypothetical here, an optimal portfolio consists of 10 different funds, right? Fund A, 7%, Fund B, 6%, Fund C, 22%, and so on until it adds up to 100%. Let's say that is the mathematically optimal portfolio, which historically has done the best. Well, that might be very, very complicated. It might be very complicated to manage that. It might be very complicated to keep the asset allocation good. It might be expensive in the amount of fees in order to have all that allocation to be perfect and all that good stuff. It might not really be the best for you and I as individual investors. But what could be best? What could get us probably most likely 95% of the way there? We might need a 2-fund portfolio, US stocks and US bonds. We might want just a simple 3-fund portfolio, US stocks, international stocks, and US bonds. The point is that those asset allocations are very, very simple, and they're probably going to deliver you a pretty darn good return in the long run. And it's a lot simpler to manage a portfolio that is only 1, 2, or 3 funds than it is to manage a portfolio that's 8, 9, 10 plus funds. Now this leads me to the big question here. I want to know from you in the comments below, are you guilty of optimizing anything in your personal finances to the point to where it probably would have been better for you, simpler for you to just take the simple path? Are you guilty of any of this like I am? Please let me know in the comments below. I'm really curious to hear what you have to say. But I do have some more examples for you, and the next one is when it comes to spending. So I've already shared that I've made this mistake myself. But yes, when it comes to spending, if you want to optimize your spending, you can take a look at every single thing that you spend your money on, and you can reduce it in a smart way. Like, hey, when I go to the restaurant, I get water every time. Yeah, that's seriously something that I do, right? I've optimized that to where I don't have to pay the $3 for another drink, which I don't even want to drink any of that stuff anyway, but that's just an example, okay? There might be something like that where you optimize a very, very small thing, a very small part of your spending, and overall that might allow you to achieve a high savings rate. Like for me, I was optimizing everything. Even though I've said it was a mistake now, looking back at it, I spent way too much time optimizing. I was able to achieve at one point a 75% savings rate. right? So you might be able to do all that and optimize your savings and get to a 75% savings rate. And you've reached the holy grail of financial independence savings rates, right? However, it's probably not worth it for most of us. Instead, you could take the simple path. If you just optimize the big three, your housing, transportation, and food, and then just look at some of your fixed expenses, and like mostly like your insurance and your, just bills you pay every single month. If you just get those down, you probably are already at a 50% savings rate just by doing that. If you can get to a 50% savings rate, you can achieve financial independence and early retirement in a pretty darn fast time frame. And I think that for the vast majority of us out there, the simple is going to be much, much better than the optimal. Likewise, the other mistake that I made was when it came to reducing my federal income taxes, right? I optimized it. And I still kind of do that again today, but it's a lot simpler for me to optimize it now that I am, partially retired. But when it comes to you trying to optimize your federal income taxes, you might have to do all this kinds of research, look into it, read all the publications, which are really boring and dry, by the way. I've done it. You might have to do all this research, do all these different kinds of actions in order to get your tax bill down to zero, right? Is it worth it? Maybe, maybe not. What can you do in order to get yourself 95% of the way there to getting yourself to paying only 5% of your income in federal income taxes? If you just contribute a lot of money to your retirement accounts, then you're probably going to reduce your taxes pretty darn low. If you put a bunch of money in your IRA, if you put a bunch of money into your 401k, into your HSA, you don't really have to do much else. And you probably are going to qualify for the saver's credit. If you have a child, you're probably already going to qualify for a child tax credit. You might already be able to substantially reduce your federal income taxes without really having to do much more effort than that. It might be simple for you to get down to paying only 5% of your income taxes, where it might be very complex for you to learn and research to get your federal income taxes down to 0%. So in this case, I think for the vast majority of us out there, simple is better. Whether you're well on your way to financial independence or you're pretty new to this stuff, you do need to watch this other video that I have for you. I think it's going to help you out a lot, okay? It's my complete guide to getting started on the path to financial independence. That video is going to pop up right on the screen after I get off the screen. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'm Zach from OnCashFlow.com, and I hope to see you next time. And today I would probably be in a similar racks out. So that's one thing. I was obsessed with optimize my spending. And they're going to deliver you in a very, very